Last November 1, Pixelmator announced that it has been acquired by Apple. Looking at social media, it seems a lot of folks were excited about this purchase, going as far as to say that this deal is going to create a legitimate competitor to Adobe. For example, in this article from Petapixel, the author states that, quote, if Apple were to choose to put resources into Pixelmator and Photomator, both could challenge Adobe's market dominance that it has enjoyed for the better part of a decade. So in this video, I thought it would be useful to analyze the pros and cons of this acquisition and whether there is a good probability that this will create a legitimate competitor to Adobe's Lightroom or Photoshop. So let's get right into it. First question is, why do I think Apple acquired Pixelmator? In my view, Apple acquired Pixelmator for the purpose of acquiring talent and technology that can be used to improve the editing capability of its Photos app. To understand the problem of photos, let's edit a raw photo with Photos. I'll brighten the shadows. As you can see, a decent result, retaining nice contrast and bringing out detail in the image. Next, I'll adjust the highlights. Unfortunately, in contrast to the shadows adjustment, the highlights adjustment produces a pretty mediocre result. Not only does the adjustment drastically reduce the contrast of the sky in an unpleasant way, it also has a tendency to introduce artificial color shifts which don't look that great. Also, aside from these basic adjustments, there's just not as much Photos can do. Next, let's edit the same photo with Photomator. I'll brighten the shadows. As you can see, a good result. Next, I'll reduce the highlights. As you can see, compared to Photos, a far more competent result, maintaining nice contrast and color while recovering a good amount of detail. Next, I'll use the texture slider, an adjustment which Photos has no equivalent, to enhance local contrast. Next, I'll use AI masking, another tool not available in Photos, to perform a local adjustment and bring down the exposure of the sky. As you can see, the result looks great. So with this brief demonstration, you can see how Photos' lack of features and overall poor editing might spur Apple to pour money on the problem and acquire Pixelmator for the technology. Next question is, will this deal likely create a competitor to Adobe's Lightroom and Photoshop, as the aforementioned article suggested? While this would be certainly a great development if it were true, there are a few reasons to be skeptical. The first is Apple's poor track record when it comes to improving its own applications. People may have forgotten that back in the 2000s, Apple did have a Lightroom competitor named Aperture. Just like Lightroom, it was used to manage massive photo libraries, refine photos via adjustment brushes, edit raw files, apply presets, and more. So if you were not aware, you might ask, what happened to Aperture? Well, back in 2015, under CEO Tim Cook, Aperture was discontinued in favor of the consumer-focused Photos app we use today. I'll guess because it wasn't contributing all that much to Apple's bottom line. In any case, I remember this distinctly because back in 2015, just as I had purchased Aperture for $79, I was told a few days later that the app was being discontinued. Really terrible timing. In addition to the discontinuation of a professionally geared product like Aperture, we also have to remember that even the current consumer-focused Photos has been hardly updated in photo editing functionality, with the editing tools largely staying the same since it was first launched 9 years ago. Therefore, it seems to be wishful thinking that somehow Apple has changed its mind and now wants to make a Lightroom competitor out of Pixelmator Pro or Photomator. So, all in all, while the future is uncertain, and while I do hope that Apple does the right thing and builds up Pixelmator and Photomator to be the Adobe competitors it can be, I do fear that given its track record, the fact that photo editing is not its core business, that Apple will neglect Pixelmator apps just like it has with so many of its own apps. And that would be a big shame indeed. So I hope you found this video helpful. Let me know what you think of this acquisition. Are you optimistic about Pixelmator Pro's and Photomator's future? Write it down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And if you like this content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to help keep the videos coming. Until the next video, I'm going to see you in the next one. Bye for now.